Have you ever heard of 20 Mule Team Borax? Do you know its connection to Shelter Island? His name is Francis Marion Smith, known as the Borax King. He discovered the richest borax deposit in Nevada, and he transformed the borax mining industry. He also happened to make Shelter Island his summer home. Francis Marion Smith was born in Wisconsin in 1846. He had left his home to go west to seek opportunity that he did not envision as a farmer in the Midwest. However, his first 5 years in the West were not particularly successful. After not having any luck following gold and silver mining camps and being engaged in nearly every vocation pertaining to mining, he eventually found modest success in the woodcutting business in Nevada. From Miller Mountain, where he was operating his business out of a primitive cabin, he could see the gleaming white of Teal's Marsh in the distance. After exploration, he found that he had come across a rich deposit of borax. This was the start of a successful career in the mining industry. Through various investments and the pioneering of borax mining and other ventures in California and elsewhere, Smith accumulated a great deal of wealth. In 1875, he married Mary R. Wright, better known as Molly, and years later they established a home and extensive grounds called Arbor Villa in Oakland, California, and an estate called Près de Loup on Shelter Island, New York. In 1892, Smith and his wife came to visit Shelter Island and stayed at the Grand Hotel, the Manhasset House, situated on Deering Harbor. The family legend tells us that while riding across the island on what we now know as South Ferry Road, Molly saw the home of widow Hannah Cartwright and exclaimed, "That's the place I want." By the time they ended their visit, F.M. Smith had purchased a 42-acre homestead in Molly's name. Over several years, he purchased many other plots of land until he had an estate of 260 acres, which he named Près de Loup, meaning near the water. His land was located near the South Ferry, plus 235 acres in St. Chem's Neck and on Cedar Island, now known as Taylor's Island. The old Cartwright house, home of the late Maltby Cartwright, a well-known whaling captain, was kept intact but was not large enough for all of the Smiths' guests. Elias Havens Payne, a local builder, started work on the new house, which embraced the 1700 Cartwright house. As the years went by, several new additions were created. At its peak, Près de Loup consisted of 35 rooms. In addition, a large seawall was built as well as 2 docks. One was for his yacht, and one was for supplies and coal. He also built a 12-foot fence around what was called the Deer Park, where deer were brought in from California for hunting. Not surprisingly, F.M. Smith became interested in sailing and yachting, considering the beautiful waters surrounding Shelter Island. His first boat was a 17-foot catboat called the Surprise. He had many boats over the years and even commissioned special boats to gain the speed he desired. Perhaps his most famous was a 90-foot racing sloop called the Effort. The Effort won the King Edward VII Cup in 1906. Frank held the position of Rear Commodore of the Shelter Island Yacht Club in 1901, and in 1902 he was the Vice Commodore. One special element of the estate is the Smith Ransom Japanese Bridge. The bridge still exists today thanks to the Smith Ransom Bridge Conservancy that was established to support the restoration and preservation of the bridge. The Japanese bridge is currently owned by and located on the property of the South Ferry Hills Association. The bridge is historically significant because it is known as one of the earliest ferroconcrete structures in the United States. It is also one of the only 2 known surviving bridges built by Ernest L. Ransom, an early pioneer in reinforced concrete. The bridge is very elegant and gives a peek into the past glory of the estate. Molly Smith was a charitable woman with great energy and a big heart. She was known to throw lavish parties with huge guest lists that raised money for her charitable endeavors. In their home in Oakland, California, she founded a home and school for orphan girls. She also brought her fundraising skills to the community on Shelter Island. In 1900, she was on a committee to raise money for a new organ at the Presbyterian Church, as well as organizing a fall festival that raised money for the local library. The August 3rd event to raise money for the organ was reviewed in the Suffolk Times. To quote them, more than 1,100 invitations had been sent out by Mrs. F.M. Smith, chairman of the committee. Mrs. Smith's whole heart and soul seemed to be in the work of making the affair a great success, end quote. Sadly, Molly died of a stroke in 1905. A little over a year later, Frank married Evelyn Ellis, Molly's secretary, and by 1913 they had 4 children. Evelyn ran the Mary R. Smith Trust, thus continuing Molly's philanthropic efforts. After Frank's death in 1931, Evelyn Smith ultimately became president of the West End Chemical Company, an important Smith asset located in California. In 1913, Frank became financially overextended due to an excess of short-term bank loans and was forced to relinquish most of his assets, which included his borax interests, his real estate investments, and his transportation investments to his bank creditors in California. The family did not visit Shelter Island that summer. While he was away, the deer from Smith's Deer Park escaped the fencing and started causing problems for local farmers. Some were even known to swim across the channel to North Haven. The state conservation commissioner at the time said, "The deer have become as numerous and pestiferous as jackrabbits, and it has become practically impossible to grow anything on the island. It would not be right to make farmers go through another season with a practical certainty of having their crops ruined." A, quote, deer drive was organized in 1916 to catch the deer and take them upstate. However, the endeavor was a failure. In 1921, at the age of 75, personal assets had to be sold after settling most of his debts. Smith was able to again borrow funds, cobble assets, and make a partial comeback in the mining and the borax industries. In 1922, there was a large auction at the estate on Shelter Island. Farm tools, horses, and cars were auctioned off, as well as 13 parcels of land, although the main house was kept in the family through the years of the Great Depression. Most of the time, the house was unoccupied and could not be sold, even for use as a hotel. The house was badly damaged in the Great Hurricane of 1938 and was becoming an increasing tax burden. So Evelyn and her daughter, Dorothy Bailey Kane, decided to have it torn down. Smith's health began to deteriorate by 1928 after suffering a series of small strokes. In August of 1931, Smith died at the age of 85 after falling down the stairs at his home in California. He is buried at the Oakland Mountain View Cemetery. Francis Marion Smith, also known as Borax Smith or the Borax King, certainly left his mark on the world and on Shelter Island. But he's not the only sea-loving philanthropist to live in a spectacular home on this island. Andrew Fisk inherited Sylvester Manor in 1944, and with the help of his wife Alice, gave back so much to our island. But that's a story for another day.